People think my children sent me to live with my grandson because they loved me. That wasn't it at all. They sent me away because of what I was getting too close to finding out. And by the time I finally understood why, it was too late to stop me. There's a difference between being cared for and being managed. I'm going to tell you that difference because everything that happened to me depends on it. My name is Margaret Vance. I'm 78 years old, and I've lived in the same house on Maple Street for 43 years. My husband Arthur built that house with his own hands, and he died in it 11 years ago, holding my hand in the blue armchair by the window. That armchair, it meant something to me. Arthur picked it out the year we bought the house, and it sat in that corner for over 4 decades. Everything I loved was within 4 walls of that chair. My children's first steps, my grandchildren's birthday candles, my whole life in one living room. Then, last autumn, I found a box in the attic. Now, you need to understand, I'm not a suspicious woman. I'm not the kind to pry. But that box and what I did with it is the reason I'm sitting here telling you this story, instead of living quietly in my home. This is the story of the year my son decided I needed help, and how I found out what he really meant by that word. The box was Arthur's. I'd never seen it before. I was up there looking for the Christmas ornaments, and there it was, tucked behind the insulation, like someone had hidden it on purpose. Inside was a stack of old letters, a set of keys I didn't recognize, and a deed to the land behind our house. 10 acres, land that, 40 years ago, was worth almost nothing. I didn't think much of it then. I put the box back where I found it and forgot about it, but I mentioned it to my son Daniel the next time he visited. Just in passing, I said, "You know, I found a box of your father's in the attic," and I watched something in his face close. 2 weeks later, Daniel came to dinner with a plan. His wife Claire sat across from me with that practiced smile, and Daniel laid his hands flat on the table, the way he did when he was selling something. "Mom," he said, "we've been talking. You're not getting any younger. The house is too much for you. We think you should come live with us, just for a while. Let us take care of you." I said, "Daniel, I'm fine. I've been fine for 43 years. "I know, Mom, but we worry. The stairs, the cold. What if something happens and nobody's there? We couldn't live with ourselves." Claire nodded, all warm. "It would make us so happy, Eleanor. You'd be with family." Now, a part of me wanted to believe it. Every mother wants to believe her children mean well, and I was tired. Arthur was gone, and the house was quiet in a way that ached. So I said yes. That was my first mistake, but it wouldn't be my last. Living at Daniel's house, it wasn't unkind exactly. It was just managed. There was a schedule on the fridge, meals at the same time every day. My medications laid out in a little plastic tray, with the days of the week on them, like I was a child who couldn't be trusted with my own pills. The guest room had no lock on the door. Claire said that was for my safety, and I wasn't supposed to use the phone without asking first. I told myself it was love. That's the dangerous part, when people are slowly taking over your life. They never call it that. They call it help. One night, about 3 weeks in, I couldn't sleep. I got up for a glass of water, and I heard voices in the kitchen. Daniel and Claire thinking I was asleep. Did she say anything else about the attic? That was Claire. Nothing. She doesn't even know what's in it. Daniel's voice, low. Then we need to move faster before she finds out what that land is worth. The development company called again. They'll pay triple if the deed's clean and in our name. I stood in the dark hallway, the glass shaking in my hand, and I understood something I hadn't wanted to understand. They weren't taking care of me. They were managing me, and the box in the attic wasn't a memory. It was a fortune. Arthur's land that he'd bought with his own hands, that he'd always meant to give to, I didn't even know who. But I knew one thing. They wanted it, and they'd put me in this house, in this room without a lock, to make sure I never got it. That was the night I stopped being their guest and started being their problem. The next morning, I made the mistake of confronting them, gently. Because that's who I am, I wanted to give them a chance. I said, "Daniel, I heard you last night. I know about the land." The look that passed between them, I'll never forget it. Claire smiled first, the way you smile at a child having a tantrum. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, "you're confused. You've been so confused lately. That's exactly why we think you need a little more help." And within a week, there was a woman in the house. Her name was Brenda. She was kind, soft-spoken, and she followed me everywhere. She called me Mrs. Vance in that careful, watching way. She was a caregiver, they said, for my own good. But Brenda reported everything. I knew it because Claire started knowing things I'd only said to Brenda. Little things, where I'd put my glasses, that I'd gone to the mailbox, that I'd been in my room crying. I was being watched. In my own family's home, I was a prisoner with a smile on her face. Now here's where you need to understand something about women like me. We're not loud. We don't rage. We've spent a lifetime learning to be quiet. And that quietness is exactly what people underestimate. I didn't fight them. I didn't call my lawyer. I let them believe they'd won. I let Daniel think I was too confused to remember the box, too old to do anything about it. And every night after Brenda went to sleep, I did one small thing. The first night, I found the key to the guest room door in Claire's jewelry drawer, the key they thought I didn't know about. The second night, I called my old friend Ruth, the only person in the world I trusted, and I asked her to do me one favor. The third night, I wrote a letter, not to my lawyer, not to the police. I wrote to the one person Arthur had always told me about, the man who'd helped him buy that land 40 years ago, a man named Joseph, who still lived 2 towns over and owed Arthur everything. I mailed that letter from the mailbox down the street, the morning Brenda was on the phone. A week later, Joseph came to the door. He was old now, like me, but his eyes were sharp. He looked at Daniel and Claire with the calm of a man who had nothing to fear. "Mrs. Vance," he said, "I brought you something from your husband." And he handed me the deed to the land, the real deed, the one Arthur had signed over to me the year before he died, that he'd kept safe with a man he trusted, in case anyone ever tried to take it. The deed in the attic box was a copy, a decoy. Arthur had known somehow. He'd known there'd be a day like this. Daniel's face went white. "That's not possible." "It's possible," I said softly. "My husband protected me better than you ever did. The development company deal collapsed. The land, it was mine, free and clear. And Daniel and Claire, well, I didn't press charges. That's not who I am. But I made them leave that night, and I made them take Brenda with them. I went back to my house on Maple Street. I sat down in Arthur's blue armchair by the window, and for the first time in months, I breathed. I didn't sell the land. I didn't need to. I donated it to the community garden in Arthur's name. The one thing my children never understood. They thought it was about money. It was never about money. It was about control. And I took it back. The last time I saw Daniel, he stood on my front porch and said, "Mom, you seem like yourself again." "That's the difference," I told him. "For a while there, I let you make me someone else. I'm not managed. I'm not a schedule problem. I'm not confused. I'm Eleanor Vance, and this is my home." So if you're listening to this and you're somewhere near my age, or you're watching because you love someone that age, remember this. Don't go somewhere to be taken care of before you've asked yourself who's really doing the taking. There's a difference between being cared for and being managed. Cared for means you're still yourself. Managed means they're deciding who you are for you. I'm 80 years old now, and I learned that lesson later than I should have. But I learned it. Never underestimate a quiet woman. She's not confused. She's waiting, and she's already 3 moves ahead.